Hi, my name's Alyssa and I'm a sophomore.
Hi, I'm Harley and I'm a junior. And we're here to give parents some insight into teen suicides in the 13 Reasons Why show. So, first of all, have you seen the 13 Reasons Why show? Because there's a very good chance your child has.
Yeah, I know I definitely watched season 1 in an entire weekend, and I haven't watched season 2 yet, but I know I'm planning to watch it right after finals this week.
I've also seen the entirety of season 1 and I'm looking forward to season 2, which is now newly out. So, parents, there is a chance that your kid is watching this show, not that that's a bad thing, but it's important to know about the show so you can then have conversations with them if they have questions or you feel it appropriate to talk about some of the more serious topics addressed in the show.
It's definitely something that's very popular, and it's honestly been seen by anyone because you don't have to have Netflix to see it. You can go online and find other ways to view the show. So as a parent, it's definitely your job to stay informed and to make sure that you know what's going on in the show to stay on top of it. And we talk about it at school all the time. It's something popular that we discuss, especially right now because it's just coming out and it's back like in the spotlight again.
Yes, kids in schools do like to talk about popular things, and right now this show is definitely one of them. So it is important to know that your kid is probably watching this show, and you should be ready to talk about some of the more serious things in the show because it definitely hits on a lot of topics that most shows just don't even talk about, mainly teen suicide and bullying. So these are just topics that you should be able to have a conversation with your child or children with.
And as a parent and knowing that your child is watching this, I think it's definitely important that you do talk to your child or that you know your child and you look for the warning signs of depression or suicide or bullying and things like that and stay on top of your child's mental wellness because if they're struggling at a point in their lives and watch this show, it could be something that might be damaging, that might not be beneficial to their mental wellness.
Yes, watching the show can cause children to have certain reactions to some of the more graphic content in the show or some of the more serious topics it hits. So especially if your kids are watching it, whether or not you want them to be or not, look for any changes in behavior they might have because of it, because this could be signs that they're having some sort of reaction to the show.
And in regard to the show being like publicized on social media and everything, I think the show does a good job of bringing to light the use of technology for bullying. In season 1, a very negative picture of the main character is spread throughout the school anonymously, and those are things that happen every day. Kids get bullied every day on social media through anonymous posts or anonymous chats. And technology is something that should be monitored. You should be monitoring your children on social media and keeping up to date. You know, even if you have Facebook, like there's Snapchat, Twitter, there's Instagram, there's all these different types of things, but just making sure that, you know, you don't have to necessarily get an Instagram account yourself, just making sure you know what's going on these platforms.
Exactly. You see, social media, as I'm sure you're aware, has been exploding in the last decade, and now there's tons of different ways that you can access chats online. We talked about Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, all these things that are a lot more popular with youth now. So it is important to know what your children are doing on these social media platforms because as a parent you may not have any idea and this show could be having an impact on them. And teen suicide is a very prevalent issue, so whether or not they are watching the show, it would be a good idea to be able to recognize the signs and be aware of it throughout social media because anything can happen on social media. Anyone can say whatever they want to and it's just out there for anyone to see.
After watching the show and what the main character Hannah goes through, if one of my friends told me that they were going to commit suicide or they were dealing with depression, that's not something that I'd keep to myself. Even if they told me, hey, this is a secret, like don't tell anyone, I would definitely tell my mom and even my school counselor because they have the resources necessary to deal with my friend's problem and to get help for my friend because if something happened to them, that's not something I can live with. As teenagers, a lot of people think that we, don't know what to do or that we're going to brush things like this off, but it's something that I personally, and I mean, you as well, and a lot of my peers take very seriously, and you as parents should take seriously as well.
Yes, you really don't expect your children to have any reaction to this. I know that I would never assume that someone is suicidal because that's just not something that you think about really. So if you see anything that could lead you to believe this, don't just brush it off. And if it's nothing, it's nothing. Then you were vigilant and you were ready and it was nothing and everything's fine. But if it is something, then you'll be really glad that you were paying attention, you noticed the signs, and you were ready. So being able to have a conversation with your children is such a powerful thing, especially if you can be informed with that. And there are a lot of places where you can get help if it comes to this. If you believe that you or someone you know is suicidal, talking with your parents or other trusted adults is an excellent resource. Your school counselors, like I know you talked about before, excellent resource. And there are crisis lines that you can call if you think that you're suicidal or you know someone who is. There are lines that you can text. There are so many resources for you to access. All you have to do is go use them. So you need to know that these are available to you and be ready to use them if you or someone you know could be suicidal.
And I know the show focuses on a lot of dark topics and like hard to cope with themes, but the other thing to remember is that it also kind of sheds light on how our actions affect others and what the effect of bullying really is. I know this show taught me to be more aware of how I treat other people and the things I say because I don't know what they're going through, and what I do may have a horrible impact on them, just like it did on Hannah and all the people she, I guess, blamed for her suicide. So I think that there are some positive takeaways. But the other thing too is that the show also kind of lacks that teaching teens that there's more than high school, that there's more to live for, and I think that's something that we all need to keep in mind when we watch this show, because the characters seemed so caught up in the moment, and that's just not the case. There's so much more of life to have.
Yeah, life doesn't just take place in a high school. It's 4 years of your life, and it's really short compared to everything else you go through. But it is a really important part of it, and there are a lot of kids in that age group that could be feeling very stressed and very overwhelmed, and this can lead to thoughts of suicide. So one thing that you really need to take away from this is look for signs, be aware of them, know what they look like, because you may never think that they'll show up in your child, but it could really happen to anybody. So if you're aware of the signs and you can be ready if you see them, and as soon as you notice them, definitely take them seriously. Don't brush it off. Don't just think that's a teenager being a teenager, because if it is, great, but it might not be. So be ready to do something about it if it comes to that.
And the relationship between you and your teenager should be both ways. You need to be talking to them just as you would expect them to be talking to you and telling them how you're feeling. And honestly, at the end of the day, I would recommend that you watch the show with them, because that's a way for you to get the discussion going. That's a way for you to address these topics right then and right like there, so they're not hiding anything from you, and you can see their emotions and see their reactions and take into account their opinions and their thoughts and how they process the show.
Yeah. So whether or not you want your child to watch this show or not at all, or whether you just don't think they're ready to watch it yet, it's out there. They may watch it with or without you knowing about it, and even if they don't, teen suicide is still a very important, prevalent issue that anyone should be ready to take head on. Thank you for your time.